guys, Cody here, KIG Outdoors, and today we're back out in the shop once again. As you can tell behind me, you got the little John boat to bass boat conversion behind me. If you're all new to the channel, this is basically a project that I did for, I don't know, about a year, 10 videos, 12 videos, something like that. And actually, I think my last video I posted was 6 months ago that said I was done with it. Now, anybody that owns a boat knows that was a lie, because you're never ever done with a boat. I don't care if it's a sailboat, I don't care if it's a runabout or a bass boat. You're always wanting to do something to it, whether it be maintenance or putting a better trolling motor on it, or depth finders. You're never going to be done with it. So that was a mistake on my behalf. But in that video 6 months ago, I quickly realized, when taking this boat out on windy days, I had a problem. What that problem would be is, if you had anything like 10 to 15 mile an hour winds all day long, you whoop this trolling motor's butt. And I think it's just because it's so lightweight. You've got so much sticking above the water, plus me on top of it. I mean, it's just, it's set up for disaster. And I quickly realized I had, that problem. So I came back and I started doing some research and trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Now, there is a lot of options out there, and we'll talk about them real quick. Whether it be a trolling motor with spot lock on it with iPilot, or shallow water anchors, or hell, a rock, basically a rock with a rope around it, or even a fancy one that you can hit a button and it goes down on its own. But guys, there's a lot of options that you can do. But I kind of got obsessed with the shallow water anchors, and one of the reasons is there's a YouTuber. I mentioned him 100 times before in my videos, Michael Lopez. It's kind of a go-to guy on these little John boats, and he runs the Tiny Boat Nation, and he actually made a set of these. And I said, you know what? For the price that these things cost, which, by the way, if you don't know, if you were to buy them from a company, they're anywhere from $1,800, $1,300. I think the micro is like $800, $900. You're talking some serious money, and then you times it by 2, because everybody puts 2 on there because it's cooler. And it does help stabilize you better. But with that being said, you also got to put brackets on there, so you're looking at $4,000, $3,000, whatever it may be, whatever number you want to throw out there. And I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't have that kind of money to put in a $300 John boat that I got off Marketplace. So after watching his videos, I kind of set out and said, I'm going to make these make them myself. I'm gonna set out and I'm gonna videotape the whole thing. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. And boy, was I wrong. A couple things real quick. This video is not going to be me actually assembling them. As you can tell behind me, they're already assembled. But what this video is going to be basically about is the problems that I have come up with, some of the material that I use I didn't agree with, some of the things you need to look out for, and I will give some measurements. In the video I will show you some measurements and why I decided to do certain angles and everything else. But that's beyond the point. I'm not trying to hide any of this. This is out there you can find it on his page. So. But yeah, that was my goal, and basically, guys, this is what I ended up with. It's the only downfall that I have found to these so far, other than the other problems that I found, is they're a little noisy. These have linear actuators on there that are basically DC controlled, 12 volts. You switch polarities to make it go up or down. Basically, it's a nut with a rod through it, and it screws in and screws out, and there's a motor in there that makes it go in and out. So long story short, this is a 12-inch linear actuator. I got them on Amazon. I'll probably try to put a link like right here. I think they were around $88 for the pair. And we'll talk about in a minute why I went with the 12-inch versus even a bigger one. But some of the things that I will tell you, I highly recommend you planning before you do it, because there is potential that you could buy too big of an actuators or linear actuators. But the only downfall to this is like I'm talking about, these linear actuators. They are a little loud, and a lot of people say, man, those things are too loud, you'll never catch fish. Well, guys, so is a boat motor, so is music on a boat. I mean, guys, how many times y'all been out fishing and it'd be Memorial Day weekend and boats ripping everywhere and people still catch fish, guys? It still happens. It happens every freaking holiday, every time. 4th of July. I fished bass tournaments on the 4th of July, still caught fish. So the only problem that I have with it is they're a little loud. Now you can buy linear actuators that are quieter, quicker, and cost more. So you have a price point that you have to kind of stick with in what's in your budget. So I'll let you hear them real quick. So one bad thing that I want to go ahead and say, we are in a metal building and it's probably echoing and it's picking up on this super delicate mic I've got on top of the camera, and it's probably sounding a lot louder than what it really is. But you get this out in the open doors on the water, you know, I don't even hardly notice it. And it might be that I've ran it in and out these shallow water anchors 1,000 times testing them, and I don't hear it like when I first did it. I was like, my gosh, those things are loud. But yeah, that's kind of one of the downsides to the whole build so far that I can really say that is, like, you could probably spend some money to make that go away. There are other options. So in this wad of mess, I actually went to a junkyard. Now, you know the company that makes these, I believe they are power poles, and they actually are hydraulic driven. And this is actually something cool that I picked up. This is a pump off of I think like something that was a convertible. I think it might have been like I don't even remember, like Cadillac or something like that. Anyway, this is basically 12-inch cylinders with electronic, I think, transmission fluid with a pump, and it could work the same. It already has lines and everything. I think I bought this thing for $10 at a junkyard. So I might try to convert that here in a little while. I'm just kind of, the way that they mount, man, there's nothing there. So you kind of have to make something for them to actually mount. Anyway, that's another video. Just wanted to throw that out there real quick. But with that being said, we'll go ahead and step into some of the things that I did. I actually want to reference Michael Lopez again. In his video, he made a bracket that went behind the motor on the transom and basically angled out, and he mounted his shallow water anchors to that on both sides. Now, it was 3/16 aluminum, which is the same as this. I decided not to do the full piece of aluminum. It's a little hard to come by around here unless you want to pay like a lot of money for it. And then even in his video, he even said he had trouble bending it. So I was like, I ain't about that. I'll just get my buddy to cut me one and weld it together. And that's what I did. I'll go ahead and tell you real quick. This is basically a 6x6 square with this part right here. And I'll try to get close up. This part right here is one of the more delicate areas of the whole system, and what that means is as the power poles come down, you have to have clearance. So if you'll notice the angle, when this thing comes down, it basically sits all the way down, and then you got to have clearance on the bottom. Anyway, if anybody wants to know measurements or something like that, we can get them. It ain't no big deal. We'll do it real quick. So I basically made it 4 inches wide by 3.5, and yeah, I think that's a 1.5 cut with a 3-inch on the top. Guys, if you're trying to attempt this, I think you can make these no problem. Now, another thing that I want to talk about real quick is the angle. The angle of the dangle. This is actually the left side. I went with a 15-degree angle on these. So when they mounted to the boat, I had a 15-degree angle. And the reason that is I wanted to get these power poles out as far as I could. I mean, the boat's already small enough. It's 12'6". I want to make my footprint as wide as I can. And so I decided to come up with a 15-degree angle. I thought that was a good degree. You know, I played with it. And basically, I mounted this. These are 2 4-foot, 1 inch. I think they're 1 inch and 8, or 1 inch by 1/8 inch square tubing, 4 foot long, and they're still 4 foot long. And everything on this whole setup in the beginning was aluminum, and I'm not gonna lie, it isn't now. And one of the things is after I got this built and I got it out on the water, and the first time I took it out on a windy day, I think it was blowing like 15 miles an hour. I had this thing mounted, and I had my footprint out, and I was like, man, these things are wonderful. And quickly realized I had a problem. It was bending these brackets. Matter of fact, it bent one so hard, I don't know if you can tell that if this thing will focus. They are not the same angle anymore. It bent it pretty bad, to the point where I was like, okay, it's straight now and we need to fix that. So what I ended up doing was making almost identical brackets. They're on the boat now, and the only thing that I did was I made them out of metal. It's, I think, 1/8 inch metal, but in the middle I had a friend of mine that had a 1 inch piece of stock, basically same dimensions and everything, and we made it out of 1 inch. Now, one of the mistakes that I made early on when I built these is I didn't make this wide enough. This is only 3/16 in aluminum. I don't even know, it's an odd number anyway. And I had to put spacers on both sides. So when I redesigned it, I decided to go with a thicker piece of metal. Not necessarily that, a 1/2 inch piece of metal won't hold it, but I went with that thickness so that when I put my brackets on the side, all I would have to do is basically put a nylon in there and pivot off of that. So definitely upgraded these. That was one of the big things. And I'm going to be honest with you, in Michael Lopez's video, he runs one of these and it's just bent. I don't know how strong that really is, guys. I think you're going to run into a lot of problems. You're going to run into a lot of play. As you can see, there's still play in these. I mean, you can't get it all out. But I'm going to tell you, this is probably 100% better than when I had it hooked up on these. And it was just because of the spacing. I mean, I had it spaced out almost, I think almost 1/2 inch on it. Well, anyway, I had it spaced out pretty good. Anyway, definitely I made these out of metal. And to be honest with you, even the big companies, they make theirs out of metal. They don't even make theirs out of aluminum. They make them out of metal and they powder coat them. That's exactly what I did. And I'll bring you in closer for a picture here in a minute. The second problem that I had was the knuckles. I actually decided to weld these. These are metal, powder coated metal. Basically, this is a 1 inch, I think it has a 3/4 diameter. It's a 1 inch with a 1/8 inch inner diameter thickness. Basically, it's a 3/4 inch hole. And I had these aluminum. And one problem was the way that I was mounting it. These actuators, they were putting so much downward pressure that I was actually wallering my holes out. I don't know if you can see it, maybe it'll focus. It was wallering the holes out in these and bending them to the point to, like, I was like, oh, well, that's cool. And at that point, that's when I had made my decision to switch over to metal. Now, everything's metal on here except for the tubes and the side braces, and of course the stake itself. Everything else is aluminum. I really wanted to go aluminum. I didn't want to have to worry about rust. I didn't want to have to go buy a powder coater, because that's what I ended up doing. I bought a powder coater and powder coated everything. Is that going to be rust proof? No, I know it's not, but it's kind of what I was up against. So just a heads up, if you plan on running aluminum, make sure that you get the thickness that you need, because this one mistake I made, this is only 1/16 thickness, and it definitely needed to be stronger. And then don't drill holes in it and weld it and all that good stuff. But one of the major problems that I was running into at home was being able to weld these. I don't have an aluminum welder. My buddy does, but I don't, and so that made things a little bit more difficult. I have a regular welder, but whatever. Another thing that I want to point out real quick is all the bolts that were in it were originally 5/16 stainless. Now every bolt in this is stainless. I ended up upgrading all of the main points to 3/8. Now that's just because I wanted it to be stronger. I think you get you just get it's more surface area for it to pivot off of and everything else, blah blah blah. But I did keep 5/16 on the sides, even on the, I did keep it on the cylinder because I want something to be a weak link. If you know, if something does get bound up, I leave these out and I take off with the boat or something. Hopefully the little boat will break, because I don't think the 3/8 down here on the brackets are going to break, but you know, hopefully something breaks. But yeah, this is pretty much. Oh, and something else I want to mention real quick. If you've never priced stainless steel boats, my God, they're expensive. They're almost the 3/8 are almost $1 a piece, and I ended up going to like Lowe's and buying them. I think they were even more than that. I think they were like $1.40 a piece. And on top of that, you have like pretty much a quarter per nut and like 15 cents per washer, and then the nylons that I ran in between every pivot point, I think there were like 4 of them for like $1.25 or something. So I mean, when you add up 30 nylon washers per side and times it by 2, that is actually a lot of money. It was almost the same amount of money that it took to put the actuators, the linear actuators on here. So I mean, it's around $80 worth of hardware almost. The last thing I want to go over with is what I use for steaks. These steaks are actually tomato steaks. Picked them up on Amazon. They come in a 2-pack. I think they were $33, and they have a basically an OD of 3/4. And like I said, man, they just slide right up in there perfectly, like to the point where I was like, wow, that was made to go. So I basically found a metal tube the same, and these come in 8-foot sections. I cut these down to 5 foot, or a little, maybe 4.5 foot. I'm sorry, 4.5 foot. So I could have probably got 2 of them out of there if I wanted, but that other 1/2 foot I really wanted. And the reason that is if you have a 4-foot arm with a 4.5 foot rod, I mean, you're going down 8.5 foot probably, maybe 9, depending on how low you're sitting on the water, how close you are, where you put it. So this thing can actually unfold to reach 9 foot, and I have had it that deep and it works fine. Of course, now you have to remember, the deeper you go, the less power you're going to have pushing it into there, because all your leverage is when it comes out and comes down, and then you're almost straight down by then, which you're lucky to, you know, be putting anything in the water 9 foot down on a 12-foot John boat. So these things are pretty good. I will bring you in closer to tell you and let you see everything, what I did, how I did it, and we'll talk about it real quick. So let's go ahead and cut to that. Alright guys, we're just going to start right here at the linear actuator. This is actually the top, the bottom is down here. On the bottom, we actually ended up having to put a spacer. Ooh, we had to put a spacer in there to space to get clearance off of the rod, because remember, off the arms actually move. This kind of stays stationary on this arm, and as it pivots down, it keeps itself onto this arm. Now the top half you mount to the other arm, and that's how you get your kind of like your scissor effect. And we didn't really have to space it, but I put these stiffeners in here and I kind of use it as spacers, and there's a washer and 2 nylons. This is the 5/16 stainless that I was talking about. And you know, it works good. I don't really have any complaints about it. That has been almost original the whole time. Now, as you can tell in the bracket, it is, like I said, mounted on a 1-inch piece of metal. And the reason I went 1 inch is when you add the nylon washer, it's basically a 1/16 on each side. So this is 1 inch with the I wanted to match the arms, that way when I put all the nylons in on the brackets, I wouldn't have to have like a spacing issue. And I did end up putting a second stiffener on there. It doesn't really serve any purpose that I can tell. One is definitely enough, but the second one, I had it laying around. I said, why not, right? All right, lastly, I want to talk about the knuckle. The knuckle was probably the biggest holdup of the whole build, not considering the bottom bracket. But like I said in the previous videos, I had a lot of trouble with the aluminum. There's a lot of pressure right here. So the only way that I could really get around it here is I didn't have the material for the aluminum. I didn't have it, be able to weld it, like I said. I ended up going metal. This is a 6-inch by 2-inch, 1/8 inch piece of metal stock. on both sides. In the middle is actually a inch by, I think it's ended up being an 1/8 inch thick, and I think it's only 3 inches long. That is something that if you know you build yours, you want to make sure that when this comes down, it doesn't contact it on the bottom and doesn't hit the back. Guys, this is not going to be a basically a how, you know, this do this and you'll get this product. You're going to have to make modifications on your own. With that being said, the way that that you kind of figure out how you want everything to pivot on is I made mine out of wood first. And what I mean by that is before I actually made these power poles, I come in and I said, I took 2x4s, I ripped them down, and I said, all right, I got a 4-foot length. If I put my hole here, this is what I do. It's a good way to practice. I learned a lot from that, and that's what I did. So on this 6-inch by 2-inch piece of flat stock, I cut it out, and a 1/2 inch down and a 1/2 inch over is where I made my holes. Now, take in consideration you have 4 of these. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got 2 on the bottom. Plus you have these over here. Makes you have 8. Imagine that. But you have to drill them the same. I can't stress this enough. If this one is not the same as this one, your power poles could potentially come down crooked, come down slow, cockeyed, and actually make your rod not come down straight either. So you have to drill, the bottoms and the tops have to match. So when you drill them all together. Make them all the same. Simple as that. And then the height, the height you can play with. I had a lot of trouble trying to decide where I wanted it, and I ended up going here because I had the most clearance. I'm not going to give you that because I just kind of estimated, and then I went over there and pretty much copied it. So, and it's kind of hard to measure. I think it's about 2.5 inches down. I gave you a number. The square tubing is 3 inches, and then I had to notch something at an angle in the back for clearance. But guys, this probably was one of the hardest parts of the whole build. And basically this rod is connected inside of here. I just drilled a hole, I filled it full of silicone, put a screw on it in case I ever need to bring it out. And that pretty much sums all that up. And then I made one for the other side. I'm very happy with them. I'm very happy the way they turned out. Like I said, I did powder coat them. These do go in the water every single time, and I know they're going to rust. I know eventually they're going to rust on me, and they're going to require maintenance. But that's part of it, guys. I couldn't see myself behind an aluminum welder, or, you know, taking it somewhere and having it done when I can just weld it out of metal here at the shop. So, all right, guys. So that pretty much sums up the video on the shallow water anchors. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I was telling you, there's a lot of things that I had to overcome, and I'm sorry it took so long to produce them. I didn't work on them every day, you know. I got a family, wife, kids, and sometimes things get put on the back burner. And plus, if it gets cold out here, my butt is, even with a stove, it's still hard to get them out here and work. But just watch your materials, watch, you know, what you use, and I think you'll be all right. I mean, if y'all have an aluminum welder, knock yourself out. You can make this whole thing in aluminum. I pretty much did. Matter of fact, I can even put a picture right here of them actually all aluminum. But like I said, they're not an $1,800 shallow water anchor, guys. They're not a $1,300. They're like a $300 to $400 for both of them. So they're around $150 per side. Is basically what you spend on them, roughly. And like I said, they're not the world's fastest. They're not the world's quietest. But man, they are pretty freaking cool. When it comes down to it and you're out fishing and you're throwing your lure and the wind's blowing 15-20 mile an hour and you want to stay in that position, put them down. Out crappie fishing, put them down. Catfishing, put them down. I mean, guys, they are pretty freaking cool. And I'm kind of glad that I decided to go this route, even though, you know, it took me 6 months to make them. I'm happy with the finished product. So, guys, if y'all have any questions, want to see anything else, or maybe I can help answer something for y'all, I'll be more than glad. Leave a comment down below. I'll reply back. If y'all want to see any other videos, one thing I am planning on trying to do is make a video about how I wired them. Now, these particular shallow water anchors are wired 3 different ways, and what I mean by that is I can control them 3 different ways. I got a manual foot pedal, and I'll show you a picture. I got a foot pedal that has manual switches on both sides, the wireless remote, and then I've got a little something extra that I've kind of been working on that might have took me the majority of the time, it seems like, but it's pretty cool. So if y'all want to see that video, leave a comment down below. If y'all new to the channel, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Share this with your buddies. Tell them, hey man, let's make some of these for our John boat. I think y'all can do it with a little bit of know-how and some tools. I think no problem you can knock these out. Guys, that's all I've got. I hope you enjoyed the video, and yeah, we'll catch you on the next one.